Welcome back to the Old Photo Vault channel. The weight he could not put down, Nagasaki, Japan, 1945. The boy stands barefoot, perfectly still, his face calm in a way no child should be. Strapped to his back is his younger brother, already gone, brought here for cremation after the atomic blast. There is no crying, no movement, only duty, learned too early. Around him, the land is quiet, as if even the earth is holding its breath. This photograph is not about death alone. It is about a generation forced to grow old in a single moment, carrying loss where childhood should have been. The hands across the wire. Berlin, Germany, 1961. Barbed wire cuts through the frame like a border drawn across a life. An East German soldier leans forward, breaking orders to lift a small boy over the newly built Berlin Wall. The child reaches up, trusting, unaware of the danger surrounding them. In this frozen moment, duty and conscience collide. For a second, the wall is no longer concrete and steel. It is only a line one man chooses to cross. History often remembers borders, but this image remembers the courage to defy them. The faces she gave back. Paris, France, 1918. A woman leans close, carefully painting a new face onto a wounded soldier. Anna Coleman Ladd used art, not for beauty, but for dignity. Creating prosthetic masks for men disfigured in World War I. These thin metal faces did not hide the past, but they allowed the soldiers to step back into the world without fear. In this quiet studio, healing was not loud or dramatic. It was gentle, patient, and deeply human. Sometimes, restoring a face is another way of restoring hope. The Kiss of Life, Jacksonville, Florida, USA, 1967. High above the ground, two power linesmen hang from a wooden pole. One of them has been electrocuted and gone unconscious, his body limp in the safety harness. Without hesitation, his co-worker pulls him close and gives him mouth-to-mouth, balancing on the wire. There is no crowd, no rescue team, only instinct and time running out. This photograph captures the exact second when life is chosen over fear. Sometimes, heroism is not loud. Sometimes, it is one breath given at the edge of the sky. A small joy in a quiet street. Paris, France, 1959. On a cobblestone alley, a little girl laughs as she hugs her cat, holding it as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Behind her, a woman watches from a doorway, half smiling as everyday life carries on. The bicycle, the brick walls, the worn street all fade into the background. This moment is simple, but powerful. Proof that even in ordinary corners of the world, happiness can appear suddenly, bright and unforgettable. A gentle truce in the ice. Cape Schmidt, Chukchi Sea, 1976. In a frozen world where survival is never guaranteed, a Soviet explorer reaches out to a polar bear. Nikolai Machuliak offers food to a mother and her cubs. His hand steady, his trust fragile. The bear accepts, not as a threat, but as a momentary ally. Around them, nothing but ice and silence. This photograph captures a rare pause in nature's tension, a reminder that even between species, compassion can briefly exist in the coldest places on Earth. Waiting for the first drop. Wisconsin, USA, 1954. Inside a quiet barn, two cats stand on their hind legs, eyes fixed on the stream of milk. As the farmer works, tiny splashes fall toward the floor, and the cats reach up like children waiting for a treat. The cows remain calm, the rhythm steady, the moment almost playful. This photograph turns a routine task into something magical, showing how even the smallest creatures find wonder in ordinary days. When patience is rewarded with a simple drop of joy. The same window, Two lifetimes. USA, 1964 and 2013. In 1964, a group of teenagers press against a car window, skipping school to glimpse the Beatles. Their faces are full of excitement, frozen in youth. Nearly 50 years later, the same friends sit in the same pose, now older, still smiling. Time has changed their faces, but not their bond. This photograph is not just about music. It is about memory, friendship, and the way a single moment can echo across an entire lifetime. Guardians of the High Cliff, St. Mary Lake, Montana, USA. Sibano, 1910. 5 Blackfoot warriors stand on a rocky ledge above the water, their spears and feathered staffs lifted toward the wind. Below them, the vast mountains stretch into silence. They are not posing for conquest, but for memory, captured at a time when their world was rapidly changing. This photograph holds strength, tradition, and quiet pride. It reminds us that long before borders and parks, these lands already had guardians who honored them as home. Standing Against the Night, Paris, France, c. 1987. 2 young men face the camera, baseball bats resting in their hands, eyes steady and unafraid. They were members of the Red Warriors, a youth group that formed to resist the growing wave of neo-Nazi violence in France. They were not heroes in the traditional sense, but they believed silence was more dangerous than confrontation. This photograph captures a generation choosing to stand in the shadows, fighting not for fame, but for the right to exist without fear. War is Hell, Vietnam, c. 1969. The words are written across his helmet like a quiet confession. War is hell. His eyes are young, but they already carry exhaustion and understanding beyond his years. The graffiti is not rebellion. It is truth, etched where everyone can see it. In the middle of chaos, this simple phrase becomes a shield of honesty. This photograph reminds us that behind every uniform is a human being, trying to make sense of something that should never feel normal. The First Face in Light, Philadelphia, USA. 1839. A young man stares into the lens, unaware he is stepping into history. Robert Cornelius stood motionless for over 10 minutes to capture this self-portrait, creating one of the first human photographs ever taken. The blurred edges and soft light feel almost dreamlike, as if time itself is holding its breath. This image is more than a face. It is the beginning of memory preserved by light, a quiet moment that opened the door to everything photography would become. The Sky Turning to Stone, Mount St. Helens, Washington, USA, 1980. A quiet forest road becomes a place of awe and fear as a massive cloud rises into the sky. 2 people stop, frozen, watching Mount St. Helens erupt in the distance. The ash column twists like a living thing, reminding them how small they are. In this moment, nature is no longer calm or distant. It is powerful, unstoppable. This photograph captures the second when the world changes, and nothing can ever return to how it was before. Faces Too Old for Their Years, United States, E1910. They stand shoulder to shoulder, their clothes torn, their faces dark with coal dust. These are children, yet their eyes carry the weight of men. Lewis Hine photographed them to show a hidden truth. Young lives spent underground, working instead of learning. This image helped change the law, but it could not give them back their childhood. It reminds us that progress often begins when someone dares to make suffering visible to the world. A Flower for the Watchman, Paris, France, 1929. On a busy street corner, a small girl stretches up on her toes, offering lilies to a uniformed police officer. He bends slightly, surprised by the quiet gesture. Around them, the city moves on, unaware. This moment is simple, but powerful. A child choosing kindness in a world shaped by rules and authority. For 1 second, duty softens, and the space between stranger and protector disappears, replaced by something gentle and human. The Night at Play, England, 1975. Clad in chainmail and a crested tunic, John Cleese kicks a ball across a quiet courtyard between takes. The armor looks heavy, but the moment feels light. On the set of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, comedy and history blend into something wonderfully absurd. This photograph reminds us that even behind legendary scenes, there is laughter, rest, and play. Proof that creativity often grows in the spaces where seriousness briefly lets go. Buried Streets, New York City, USA, 1888. Snow rises higher than the doorways, turning the city into a narrow white canyon. A man stands in the middle of the street, dwarfed by walls of ice where roads once were. The Great Blizzard of 1888 shut down New York, trapping people for days and reshaping how the city prepared for winter. This photograph captures a moment when nature erased the lines of civilization, reminding everyone how fragile even the largest cities can be. An Unwelcome Portrait, England, 1967. A camera flies through the air as a kangaroo lunges forward, striking the photographer who tried to capture his image. The moment is frozen between humor and shock, showing that not every subject wants to be seen. In a quiet field, curiosity turns into chaos in seconds. This photograph reminds us that nature is never a prop, and that even a simple picture can become an unexpected confrontation. Riding Toward Freedom, the Netherlands, 1945. Two boys cling to the side of a moving train, their hair blown back by the rush of wind. The war has ended, and the country is learning how to breathe again. They hold on not just for the ride, but for the feeling of movement after years of fear. This photograph captures a moment of reckless joy, proof that freedom, when it finally arrives, is something you want to chase with everything you have. Letters from Home, Singapore, September 1945. Three Australian soldiers sit close together, eyes fixed on newspapers from home. After years of Japanese captivity, they are finally free, trying to understand a world that moved on without them. The pages in their hands carry names, places, and normal life, things that once felt impossible. In this quiet moment, the war does not end with cheering, but with silence, memory, and the slow return to being human again. The Proud Errand, Rue Mouffetard, Paris, 1954. A small boy walks confidently down the street, two bottles of wine tucked under his arms like treasures. His smile is wide, his step full of purpose. Behind him, other children follow, amused by his serious pride. Captured by Henri Cartier-Bresson, this moment feels playful and timeless. It shows how even the simplest task can feel important when you are young, and how joy often lives in the smallest responsibilities. The Crown of Identity, Rwanda, 1920s. His hairstyle rises like sculpted wings, carefully shaped into the traditional Amasunzu style. In Rwanda, this look was a symbol of pride, status, and beauty, worn by warriors and unmarried men. More than fashion, it carried meaning, telling others who he was before he ever spoke. This photograph preserves a cultural language now rarely seen, reminding us that hair can be history, and style can be a form of storytelling across generations. Watching the Sea, Take It Back. Isles of Scilly, England, 1911. Men stand silently on a boat, staring at a ship breaking apart in the distance. The Arden Craig leans helplessly in the waves, its mast tilted as the sea claims it. No one speaks. There's nothing to do but watch. This photograph captures the quiet terror of realizing that nature always decides the final outcome. In this moment, the ocean is not just water. It is power, loss, and the end of a journey. Light through the Great Hall, New York City, USA, 1954. Sunbeams pour through the high windows of Grand Central, cutting across the crowd like quiet spotlights. Travelers move beneath the light, each carrying a story, a destination, a hope. The station feels less like a building and more like a living heart of the city. In this moment, time seems to slow, reminding us that even in a place built for motion, there are brief pauses filled with wonder. The past steps into the light. Delphi, Greece, 1894. Men gather around a figure rising from the earth, its stone body still standing after centuries of darkness. The statue of Antinous emerges near the temple of Apollo, as if history itself is taking a breath. Dust clings to its surface, yet its form remains calm and complete. In this moment, the ancient world feels suddenly close, reminding us that time does not erase everything, and some stories wait patiently to be seen again. Seconds before the ground. Berlin, Germany, 1931. The city rushes upward as boots hang in the air, frozen between sky and street. Willy Rouge pressed the shutter during his parachute jump, capturing the exact moment before landing. Below, Berlin looks distant and unreal, as if painted on the ground. This photograph is not just about falling. It is about courage, curiosity, and the human need to see the world from impossible angles, even when time is running out. The Unlikely Photographer. Wakefield, Massachusetts, USA, 1909. 3 children sit patiently while a cat stands on a stool, paws on a camera, as if ready to take their picture. The moment is playful and perfectly staged, capturing a sense of humor from another century, in a time when photography was serious and slow. This image reminds us that laughter has always been part of family life. Sometimes, the best portraits begin with imagination and a very curious cat. Eyes of a New World. Ellis Island, New York, USA, c. 1910. She stands still, dressed in the clothing of her homeland, her eyes steady and uncertain. Captured by Augustus F. Sherman, this portrait shows one of millions who arrived at Ellis Island searching for a new life. Behind her gaze is hope, fear, and the weight of leaving everything familiar behind. This photograph holds the quiet moment before a future begins, when identity is carried in the heart and possibility waits on the other side of the door, waiting for the spotlight. Hollywood, USA, 1961. Along the sidewalk, people line up holding black cats on leashes, all waiting for a single role. It is an audition, not for actors, but for their feline companions in a low-budget horror film. The scene feels strange, almost surreal, yet full of hope. Each owner watches closely, believing their cat might be the chosen one. This photograph captures a quiet dream, that even in the smallest roles, there is a chance to be seen. Listening to the Sky. Rural Europe, 1885. Children gather beneath the trees, their faces lifted, eyes following something unseen. They are not chasing or calling, only listening. In this quiet moment, the world feels wide and gentle, filled with birdsong and wonder. John Dumont captured more than a scene. He preserved a feeling of childhood curiosity when nature itself felt like a story waiting to be heard. Sometimes, the most beautiful moments are the ones that ask us simply to stop and listen. The Weight of the Sea, Istanbul, Turkey, c. 1930s. A fisherman walks uphill through a narrow street, a massive fish balanced across his shoulders. Each step is slow, heavy, earned. Behind him, the city waits. Doors, windows, and quiet lives that depend on the sea's gift. This photograph captures more than a catch. It shows pride, survival, and the unspoken bond between a man and the water that feeds him. Inside the Machine, United States, 1924. A young mechanic leans into a massive engine, muscles tense as he turns the wrench. The steel around him feels endless, heavy, alive. Photographed by Lewis Hine, this image shows the quiet strength behind America's growing power. There is no spotlight, only effort. One person keeping a giant system moving. It reminds us that progress is built not by machines alone, but by the hands and endurance of those who stand beside them. Steps above the void. Jiangyu, China, 1930s. A Buddhist monk walks calmly across a narrow chain bridge, suspended high above the ground. Below him is only air and stone, yet his face shows no fear. Each step feels deliberate, balanced between danger and faith. This photograph captures a quiet courage, not loud or dramatic, but deeply centered. It reminds us that true strength is often found in stillness, when trust replaces doubt and the path forward is walked one careful step at a time. Two bodies, one journey. Damascus, Syria, 1889. A blind man moves forward, carrying another who cannot walk. Together, they form a single path through the world, each depending on the other to survive. Photographed by Tancred Dumas, this image speaks of resilience and quiet partnership. There is no pity here, only shared strength. In a time without support or safety nets, they became one another's way forward. This photograph reminds us that sometimes survival is built not on independence, but on trust. The Weight of the Crown, London, United Kingdom, 1953. Seated in full regalia, Queen Elizabeth II holds the symbols of a lifetime of duty. The crown, the orb, the scepter, each one heavy with history and expectation. Though young, her expression is calm and resolute, as if already aware of the years ahead. This portrait is not only about royalty, but about responsibility, showing a woman stepping into a role that would shape the world for generations. A moment of light in the cold. Korea, 1954. Marilyn Monroe stands on a simple stage, her back to the camera, facing thousands of American soldiers. Around her, the hills are quiet, but the crowd is alive with attention. For a few minutes, war fades into the background, replaced by music, beauty, and laughter. This photograph captures how even in the harshest places, a single performance can remind people of home, hope, and the world waiting beyond the battlefield. After the war, Canterbury, England, 1928. An elderly veteran sits against a brick wall, his uniform faded but still worn with pride. A basket of matches rests at his feet, his new livelihood after the battlefield. Medals remain on his chest, reminders of a past life that no longer protects him. This photograph captures the quiet reality many soldiers faced. Honor remembered, but survival left to their own hands. The Day the Sky Fell, New York City, USA, 2001. Mice 1. Smoke pours from the Twin Towers as people run through the streets below, caught between disbelief and fear. The world feels suddenly fragile, as if time itself has stopped. In this moment, ordinary lives are changed forever. This photograph does not show answers, only shock, loss, and a city holding its breath. It reminds us how quickly normal can disappear, and how deeply a single day can shape history for generations. The Face of Revolution, Cuernavaca, Mexico, c. 1911. Emiliano Zapata stands tall, one hand in his pocket, the other near his weapon. His wide sombrero and steady gaze reflect a man shaped by struggle and belief. He fought not for power, but for land and justice for the poor. This portrait captures more than a revolutionary. It shows a symbol of resistance, reminding us that change often begins with those who refuse to remain silent. Light in the Narrow Way, Hong Kong, 1950s. Sunlight slips through a tight alley, turning dust into gold. A child sits quietly at a small table, framed by tall walls and hanging signs. In this crowded city, space is scarce, yet the light finds its path. Captured by Fan Ho, this moment feels both lonely and hopeful. A reminder that even in the smallest corners, there is room for stillness and for dreams to begin. The city turned to ice. Detroit, Michigan, USA, Sue 1917. A fountain rises like a frozen tower, layer upon layer of ice stacked by the winter cold. People walk around it slowly, dwarfed by this strange sculpture made by nature itself. What was once moving water is now perfectly still. This photograph captures a moment when the city pauses, transformed into something unreal, reminding us how quickly the familiar can become extraordinary. Dreams of speed under glass. Paris, France, 1910. Beneath the vast glass ceiling of the Grand Palais, machines gleam like promises of the future. Crowds move between shining automobiles, marveling at a new age of motion and possibility. The hall feels alive with energy, where invention meets imagination. This photograph captures the moment when the world began to move faster, and people gathered to witness what tomorrow might look like. The Future on Rails, Syracuse, New York, USA, 1936. The streamlined Mercury glides past City Hall, its sleek shape unlike anything the street has seen before. People pause, hats tilted, watching the promise of speed roll through their city. In an era still touched by hardship, this train represents progress, confidence, and a belief in what lies ahead. This photograph captures the moment when tomorrow arrived early, shining, fast, and full of possibility. The Last Warriors, Japan, c. 1860s. Seated in full armor, the samurai gazes forward with quiet strength. Each plate and cord tells a story of discipline, honor, and a fading way of life. As Japan stood on the edge of change, this image captured a tradition that was soon to disappear. It is not only a portrait of a warrior, but of an era, standing still for a final moment before the world moved on. Toward the unknown shore, Normandy, France, June 6, 1944. Packed into a landing craft, soldiers brace themselves as the coast comes into view. The sea is restless, the air heavy with fear and determination. In minutes, everything will change. This color image brings the moment closer, making history feel real and fragile. It captures the breath before action, the point where courage begins, and there is no turning back. Dreams above the rooftops. Millwall, London, England, 1932. A towering sailing ship rises behind rows of cramped homes, its masts cutting into the sky. Below, families hang laundry and children watch from narrow alleys, living in the ship's shadow. It feels like two worlds meeting, one of distant journeys, the other of daily survival. This photograph captures the contrast between hope and hardship, reminding us how close dreams can feel, even when they seem impossibly far away. A pause above the streets. New York City, USA, 1930. High above the city, a worker stands on a narrow steel beam, a heavy bag on his shoulder and a cigarette between his lips. Below him, the streets feel distant and unreal. There are no safety lines, only balance and courage. This photograph captures the quiet bravery behind the skyline. Men who built the city one step at a time, trusting their footing where a single mistake could mean everything. Rising between the waters, San Francisco, USA, 1935. A single tower of the Golden Gate Bridge stands in the middle of the bay, cables hanging like threads, waiting to be pulled tight. Below, a narrow walkway connects workers to this unfinished giant. The structure feels fragile now, but it holds the promise of connection. This photograph captures a city reaching across the water, building not just a bridge, but a future shaped by courage and vision. When the city fell inward, Belfast, Northern Ireland, 1972. A wall collapses in midair, frozen between standing and ruin. Bricks burst outward like a storm of ash, while a lone firefighter braces against the chaos, his hose arcing through smoke and flame. This is not just a building giving way. It is a city breaking under years of tension. In 1972, Belfast was one of the most dangerous places in Europe. Bombings, fires, and street violence marked daily life during the Troubles, a conflict that split neighbors, families, and entire communities. The photographer caught a single second where destruction and resistance share the same frame. The wall falling, and one man refusing to step back. Ice cream and steel. Stockholm Palace, Sweden, 1970. A young girl, summer-dressed and fearless, licks her ice cream while lightly tapping the tip of a royal guard's bayonet just to see if he'll react. The guard remains perfectly still, eyes forward, uniform crisp, duty unchanged. In one frame, childhood curiosity collides with ceremonial discipline. It's a small, playful moment outside Stockholm Palace that shows how ordinary life keeps moving, even beside symbols of authority. Writing the equation, Dana Hills High School, California, USA, c. 1970s. Balanced on a classroom desk, a math teacher leans forward like a surfer on a breaking wave, chalk in hand. Behind him, curved lines sweep across the blackboard, turning equations into motion. Instead of standing still, he becomes the lesson, showing students that physics and math are not just numbers, but forces you can feel. Laughter, surprise, and curiosity fill the room as science transforms into something alive and unforgettable. History lives in these images, not in the buildings or the clothes, but in the moments people never expected to last forever. If one of these photos made you pause, feel, or wonder, then the past is still speaking to you. Which image stayed with you the most? Tell me in the comments. And if you love stories hidden inside old photographs, subscribe to the channel so we can keep uncovering them together.